I was 20 when I married Nicholas, and I thought I'd found my forever. Looking back, I see how young I was, how naive. If my parents had still been alive, maybe they would have talked me out of it, told me to wait, to live a little more before tying myself to another person. But they were gone, and I was a girl in love, or so I thought. The truth is, I was in love with the idea of love, with the promise of a family I no longer had. Nicholas, 3 years my senior, was charming, handsome, and utterly convinced of his own brilliance. He swept me off my feet, and I, a girl desperate for a foundation, let him. I moved into the house he shared with his mother, a woman who looked at me from day one as if I were a stray cat her son had dragged in. Another mouth to feed, another burden. Pregnancy came quickly, a surprise to us both, but a welcome one for me. I'd always wanted to be a mother, to build the warm, loving family I'd lost. Nicholas seemed happy enough, but his mother, a woman whose approval I desperately craved, was furious. "Another dependent to drain me dry," she'd shrieked when we told her the news. "As if the two of you aren't enough." Her words were a slap in the face. We both worked, we both contributed to the household, but in her eyes, we were nothing but leeches. I tried to argue, to defend us, but Nicholas quickly silenced me. "Don't talk back to my mother," he'd hissed, his charm dissolving to reveal the steel beneath. I learned to bite my tongue, to swallow my words, to make myself smaller in the hopes of being loved. I had more work experience than Nicholas, despite being younger. I'd been at the same marketing firm since I was 17, working my way up from an intern to a senior project manager. I loved my job, the thrill of a successful campaign, the camaraderie of my team. My bosses saw my potential, hinted at a promotion, a corner office, a future I'd built for myself. But then came the baby, and my carefully constructed career path began to crumble. Nicholas, on the other hand, had a finance degree and a string of short-lived jobs. He was always searching for the perfect opportunity, a job that was worthy of his talents, which meant he was often unemployed. His mother encouraged this, telling him not to settle for pennies. I was the one who paid the price, my salary stretched thin to cover his lack of income. The arguments started, quiet at first, then escalating into full-blown screaming matches. His mother always took his side, of course. "You're the one with no education," she'd sneered. "You should be grateful for any job you can get. My son has a degree. He can't just take any menial position." I had a degree, a good one, but in her eyes, I was nothing. I held on, convinced that this was just a rough patch, that once the baby came, everything would be different, but things only got worse. The pregnancy was difficult, complicated. I was in and out of the hospital, my paychecks shrinking with each unpaid day off. I was too sick to do much around the house, and my mother-in-law's resentment grew with each passing day. I knew she was defective. I heard her mutter to Nicholas one night, "Can't even carry a baby properly." I pretended to be asleep, tears streaming down my face, my heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. I spent the last 2 months of my pregnancy in the hospital, a prisoner of my own body. But my son, Leo, was born healthy, and for a moment, I thought that was all that mattered. I'd hoped that the sight of his grandson would soften my mother-in-law's heart, but I was a fool. The first time she saw him, she recoiled as if he were a snake. "He looks nothing like Nicholas," she declared, her voice dripping with venom. "You cheated, didn't you? That's how you got that promotion, isn't it? Sleeping your way to the top." Nicholas, my husband, the man who was supposed to love and protect me, stood by and said nothing. He looked at our son, at his blonde hair, so different from his own dark locks, and a flicker of doubt crossed his face. I tried to explain that I was blonde as a child, that my hair had darkened over time, but they wouldn't listen. The words DNA test were whispered, a threat hanging in the air, but we didn't have the money, and even if we did, I knew it wouldn't matter. They'd already decided I was guilty. They had brought me home from the hospital, but our home had become a prison. I lasted 6 months, 6 months of whispers, of accusations, of Nicholas's cold indifference. The day I filed for divorce, he and his mother threw me out, my clothes in a single suitcase, my baby in my arms. My cousin found me on the street, a broken, weeping mess, and took me in. Divorce was swift. Nicholas was ordered to pay a pittance in child support, but I knew he never would. His mother, who'd come to the courthouse to gloat, confirmed it. "I hope you and your bastard die," she'd hissed as I walked away, her words a final, parting blow. The first few months were a blur of pain and fear. I couldn't stay with my cousin forever. Her small apartment was already overflowing with her own family. But I had to work. I had to provide for my son. My aunt watched Leo while I went back to my old job, my tail between my legs, but my boss was kind, understanding. He gave me my old position back, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. I found a roommate, another single mother, and we created our own little family, a patchwork of shared childcare and late-night talks over cheap wine. My relatives helped when they could, but they had their own struggles. When Leo started kindergarten, my roommate moved in with her boyfriend, and I took on a second job, a freelance writing gig I could do from home. It was exhausting, but it paid the bills, especially when Leo was sick and I had to miss work. Slowly, painfully, I built a life for us. A life free from the poison of Nicholas and his mother. I met David, a kind, gentle man who loved Leo as his own. We married, had a son of our own, Daniel, and for the first time in my life, I was truly happy. I never heard from Nicholas or his mother again. I had him legally declared a deadbeat dad, and David adopted Leo, giving him the father he deserved. Now, Leo is a man, almost 20, a student at a prestigious university in Boston. He comes home for the holidays, a smart, funny, compassionate young man who is the light of my life. David and I are raising our 12-year-old, Daniel, and our life is full and good. I hadn't thought about my past in years, hadn't allowed myself to dwell in the pain, until she contacted me. It was a message on social media, a name I hadn't seen in nearly 2 decades. My former mother-in-law. She wrote as if no time had passed, as if she hadn't wished me and my son dead. She asked how her grandson was, how I was doing. I was stunned, speechless. I replied cautiously a single word, "Fine." And then she dropped the bomb. "It's not right," she wrote, "that a grandson doesn't know his own grandmother." I read the message 3 times, sure I was hallucinating. I managed to get her on the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. Her voice was the same, that cloying sweetness that hid a core of pure malice. It turns out that Nicholas had married again, and his mother had, in her words, driven off the new wife. But the third wife, she was a different story. She was, in my mother-in-law's words, a shark. She'd taken Nicholas and moved to another city, cutting off all contact with his mother. And now, with no one to support her in her old age, she'd suddenly remembered her long-lost grandson. She needed someone to take care of her, and she'd decided Leo was the one. I didn't laugh. It wasn't funny. It was pathetic. I reminded her of what she'd done, of the things she'd said, of the pain she'd caused. I told her to consider her wish fulfilled, that for all intents and purposes, her grandson was gone. For the sake of my conscience, I told Leo about the call, about his grandmother's sudden reappearance. He just shook his head, a sad, knowing look in his eyes. "She's crazy, Mom," he said, and that was the end of it. We never spoke of her again, but the story doesn't end there. It's strange how these dark family secrets connect us. If this story is getting under your skin, subscribe for more real family exposés. A few weeks after the call, a certified letter arrived. It was from a lawyer representing my former mother-in-law. She was suing for grandparents' rights, demanding visitation with the grandson she'd abandoned 20 years ago. I was floored. I knew she had no legal standing, that her case was frivolous, but the thought of seeing her in court, of having to dredge up all that old pain, made me sick to my stomach. David was furious, ready to fight, but I just wanted it to be over. I called my lawyer, a woman who had helped me with my divorce all of those years ago. She was blunt. "She has no case, Olivia," she said, "but that doesn't mean she can't make your life a living hell." And she did. The next few months were a nightmare of legal paperwork, of depositions, of having to recount the most painful moments of my life to a room full of strangers. My mother-in-law's lawyer was a shark, just like her client, and she twisted my words, painted me as a bitter, vindictive woman who was keeping a loving grandmother from her grandson. The truth didn't matter. It was all about the performance, and my mother-in-law was a master actress. She wept on the stand, telling the judge how she'd been a victim, how I had stolen her son and grandson from her. The judge, a woman who seemed to have a soft spot for crying grandmothers, looked at me with suspicion. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling this shock too, hit like. It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The stress was unbearable. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. My work suffered. I was short-tempered with David, with Daniel. The past had its claws in me, and it was dragging me back into the darkness. The only thing that kept me going was Leo. He called me every day, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Don't let her win, Mom," he'd say. "Don't let her take anything else from us." The climax of the trial was a moment I'll never forget. My mother-in-law was on the stand, giving the performance of a lifetime. She was talking about the day Leo was born, about how she'd been so excited to be a grandmother, how her heart had been broken when I'd cut her out of our lives. And then she said it. "I just wanted to be a part of his life," she'd sobbed, "to see him grow up, to be there for him. But she wouldn't even let me see him. She said he wasn't my grandson, that he wasn't Nicholas's son." The courtroom was silent. My lawyer's head snapped up. She looked at me, a question in her eyes. I gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. She walked up to the witness stand, her voice calm, almost gentle. "So, you're saying that you believed Leo was not your biological grandson?" My mother-in-law hesitated, realizing her mistake. "Well, I was upset. I said things I didn't mean." "But you did mean them, didn't you?" my lawyer pressed. "You accused my client of infidelity. You told your son that Leo was not his child. You and your son abandoned a newborn baby and his mother because of this belief. Is that not correct?" My mother-in-law was trapped. She stammered. She tried to backtrack, but it was too late. The truth was out, and it was ugly. The judge's expression had hardened. The soft spot for crying grandmothers was gone. The verdict was a formality. The case was dismissed. I had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. I was emotionally and financially drained. The legal fees had eaten up our savings, but we were free. The past was finally, truly in the past. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations. Life slowly returned to normal. We rebuilt our savings. I started to enjoy my work again. David and I reconnected. Daniel, who had been a silent, worried observer through it all, started to smile again. Leo came home for the summer, and we spent our days at the beach, laughing, talking, healing. The scars were still there, but they were fading. We had survived. We were stronger. We were a family. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Leo turned to me, his expression serious. "I'm glad you told me the truth, Mom," he said, "about everything." "I'm glad too," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "She was a monster," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "But she didn't win. You did." And in that moment, I knew he was right. I had won. I had fought for my son, for my family, for my life, and I had won. The initial shock of the lawsuit slowly gave way to a simmering rage. How dare she? After all these years, after all the pain she inflicted, she thought she could waltz back into our lives and claim a piece of Leo? It was an insult, a grotesque parody of motherhood. David, bless his heart, was my rock. He spent hours researching grandparents' rights laws, consulting with our lawyer, and reassuring me that we would fight this. He saw the toll it was taking on me, the way the old wounds were reopening, festering anew. He'd hold me at night, stroking my hair, whispering promises of peace and justice. But even his unwavering support couldn't fully quell the storm brewing inside me. My lawyer, Sarah, was a formidable woman. She had a no-nonsense attitude and a sharp legal mind. "Olivia," she'd said, her voice firm but kind, "this woman has no legal standing. Grandparents' rights cases are notoriously difficult to win, especially when there's a history of abandonment and abuse. We'll expose her for what she is." Her words were a balm, but the process itself was agonizing. Every document, every deposition, every phone call dragged me back to a past I had painstakingly tried to bury. I had to relive the accusations, the abandonment, the struggle of those early years as a single mother. It was like picking at a scab, only to find the wound beneath still raw and bleeding. One afternoon, while going through old boxes of documents for Sarah, I stumbled upon a stack of letters. They were from Nicholas, written during the first few months after Leo was born, before the divorce. I'd forgotten all about them. I started to read, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. They were filled with apologies, with promises to change, with pleas for me to come back. He wrote about how much he missed me, how much he missed Leo. He even mentioned confronting his mother about her accusations, telling her she was wrong. My breath hitched. This was a side of Nicholas that Juan hadn't seen, a glimpse of the man I thought I'd married. Could he have truly loved me? Was there a chance, however small, that he had been manipulated by his mother just as I had been? I showed the letters to Sarah. She read them carefully, her brow furrowed in thought. "This changes things, Olivia," she said finally. "It shows that Nicholas wasn't entirely complicit in his mother's actions. It could be used to paint a more sympathetic picture of him, which might actually help our case. If we can show that he was also a victim of his mother's manipulation, it weakens her claim that she was the only one who cared about Leo." I was conflicted. A part of me wanted to believe in the Nicholas of those letters, the man who had loved me. But another, more cynical part knew that actions spoke louder than words. He had still abandoned us. He had still stood by while his mother tore me down. The letters were a ghost of a possibility, a what-if that had never materialized. As the legal battle intensified, Sarah discovered something unsettling. Nicholas's mother, in her initial filing, had claimed to be of limited financial means, arguing that she needed access to Leo because she had no other family to support her in her old age. However, Sarah's investigation into her finances revealed a substantial trust fund established years ago by Nicholas's wealthy estranged father, specifically for his grandchildren. The catch: the trust was only accessible to grandchildren who maintained a regular relationship with their paternal grandmother. If no such relationship existed by the grandchild's 21st birthday, the funds would revert to a distant charity. Leo was turning 21 in 6 months. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't about love or family or even a sudden pang of conscience. It was about money. All of it. Her sudden reappearance, the lawsuit, the manufactured drama, it was all a calculated move to secure access to Leo's inheritance. The cold, hard truth was more painful than any of her previous insults. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. She wasn't just a cruel woman, she was a predatory one. This wasn't about a grandmother wanting to connect with her grandson, it was about a woman trying to secure her financial future through manipulation and deceit. The thought of Leo being used in such a way, of his very existence being reduced to a financial transaction, filled me with a protective fury I hadn't felt since he was a baby. Sarah was ecstatic. "This is huge, Olivia. This completely undermines her credibility. It shows her true motive. The judge will see right through her. We had a weapon, a powerful one, but using it meant exposing the full extent of her avarice and potentially dragging Leo into a messy public spectacle. I had to decide if the cost of victory was worth the potential damage to my son. I sat Leo down and told him everything. I showed him the legal documents, the evidence of the trust fund, the dates, the clauses. He listened, his face growing paler with each word. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and profound sadness. "She never cared about me, did she, Mom?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It was always about the money." My heart broke for him. I pulled him into a hug, holding him tight, wishing I could shield him from the ugliness of the world. "No, honey," I said, "she never did. But I do. And David does. And Daniel does. You are loved, Leo. You are so loved." Leo, despite his initial shock, was surprisingly resolute. "We fight her mom," he said, his jaw set. "We expose her. She can't get away with this." His strength gave me strength. We were a team, and we would face this together. The legal battle transformed from a painful obligation into a righteous crusade. We weren't just defending ourselves. We were defending Leo's right to a life free from his grandmother's toxic influence. Just as we were preparing for the next phase of the trial, another unexpected development occurred. Nicholas, my ex-husband, suddenly reappeared. He called me out of the blue, his voice hesitant, almost apologetic. He'd heard about his mother's lawsuit, he said, and he was concerned. Concern? The man who had abandoned his newborn son, who had stood by while his mother wished us dead, was now concerned? I was skeptical, to say the least, but he insisted on meeting, claiming he had information that could help our case. I agreed, but only with Sarah present. We met at a neutral coffee shop, the air thick with unspoken history. Nicholas looked older, more tired than I remembered. He was still handsome, but the boyish charm had been replaced by a weariness that seemed to cling to him. He started by apologizing, a rambling, disjointed apology for his past behavior, for his mother's cruelty, for his own weakness. I listened, my face impassive, trying to discern sincerity from manipulation. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, cut to the chase. "What information do you have, Nicholas, that could help Olivia and Leo?" He hesitated, glancing around the coffee shop as if afraid of being overheard. "My mother, she's not well," he began. "She's always been difficult. But lately, she's been getting worse. She's obsessed with money, with control. She's convinced that everyone is out to get her, that she's owed something." He then revealed that his mother had been diagnosed with a severe personality disorder years ago, a diagnosis she kept hidden from everyone, including him. He had only recently discovered it after his third wife, the shark, had insisted on a full medical evaluation after a particularly explosive argument. This was a game changer. A medical diagnosis could explain, though not excuse, her erratic and cruel behavior. It could also be used to argue that she was not mentally competent to make decisions regarding a grandchild's welfare, or even to manage her own finances, which would further undermine her claim to the trust fund. But it also opened up a Pandora's box of ethical considerations. Did we want to use his mother's mental illness against her? Was that fair? Was it even necessary? Sarah saw the legal advantage immediately. "This is powerful, Nicholas. Do you have documentation of this diagnosis?" He nodded, pulling a crumpled envelope from his jacket pocket. Inside were medical records, carefully redacted, but clearly indicating a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder with paranoid tendencies. "She's been seeing a therapist for years," he explained, "but she always told me it was for stress management. I never knew the extent of it." I looked at the documents, my mind reeling. Narcissistic personality disorder. It fits. The grandiosity, the lack of empathy, the constant need for admiration, the manipulative behavior, it all made sense. It didn't erase the pain she had caused, but it provided a framework, a twisted logic to her cruelty. Nicholas's return and his revelation added another layer of complexity to an already tangled web. Was he truly trying to help, or was this another one of his mother's manipulations? A desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, or perhaps even to gain access to the trust fund himself? We decided to proceed cautiously. Sarah would verify the medical records and explore the legal implications. Nicholas, for his part, seemed genuinely remorseful, offering to testify on our behalf. He even offered to pay for Leo's college tuition, a gesture that felt both too little and too late, but also strangely sincere. I told him I would consider it, but my focus remained on protecting Leo, on ending this nightmare once and for all. The legal proceedings continued, a slow, grinding battle of wills. My mother-in-law, despite the mounting evidence against her, remained defiant, convinced of her own righteousness. She painted herself as a victim, a loving grandmother unjustly denied access to her grandson by a vindictive ex-daughter-in-law. Her lawyer, a slick, smarmy man with a penchant for theatricality, tried to discredit Sarah, to portray me as a gold digger, a manipulator. But Sarah was relentless, systematically dismantling their arguments, exposing the inconsistencies in their story. Then, a week before the final hearing, another bombshell dropped. Nicholas called me, his voice trembling with a mixture of shock and fear. "Olivia," he stammered, "you won't believe this. I found something. Something my father. He left it for Leo." He explained that after his third wife had moved him out of his mother's house, he had gone back to retrieve some of his old belongings. In a dusty box in the attic, hidden beneath old photo albums and forgotten trinkets, he found a sealed envelope addressed to him with a note from his father, to be opened only if my mother ever tries to interfere with Leo's life. Inside the envelope was a copy of his father's last will and testament, a document that had been superseded by a later, less favorable version. But this earlier will contained a crucial clause. A substantial portion of his estate, far greater than the trust fund, was bequeathed directly to Leo, with me designated as the sole trustee, provided that Nicholas's mother was explicitly excluded from any involvement in Leo's upbringing or financial affairs. The will also contained a detailed account of his father's strained relationship with his mother, describing her manipulative tendencies and her history of financial exploitation. This was the ultimate weapon. It not only exposed my mother-in-law's true character, but also provided a clear, undeniable motive for her actions. It showed that her entire lawsuit was a desperate attempt to circumvent her late husband's wishes to gain control over money that was never meant for her. The will was a testament to his father's foresight, his understanding of his mother's nature, and his desire to protect his grandson from her influence. I felt a surge of vindication, a profound sense of justice. All those years of pain, of struggle, of being dismissed and demeaned, it all culminated in this moment. The truth, finally, was undeniable. Sarah was stunned. "Olivia," she said, her voice hushed with awe. This is everything. This blows her case out of the water. We don't just win, we annihilate her." But the victory felt bittersweet. It meant exposing the full extent of the family's dysfunction, dragging Nicholas's father's memory into the public eye, and potentially causing even more pain for Leo. I had to weigh the desire for complete vindication against the need to protect my son from further emotional trauma. The decision was mine, and it was a heavy one. I discussed it with David and Leo. David was unequivocal. "We use it, Olivia. We end this. For good." Leo, however, was more hesitant. "Mom," he said, his voice quiet, "I just want it to be over. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore." His words resonated with me. I had fought for so long, carried so much anger. Was it time to let go? Was it time to choose peace over complete victory? It's strange how these dark family secrets connect us. If this story is getting under your skin, subscribe for more real family exposés. The day of the final hearing arrived, a crisp autumn morning in downtown Boston. The courtroom was packed, a morbid curiosity drawing spectators to witness the unfolding family drama. My mother-in-law sat at the defense table, her face a mask of defiant innocence, occasionally casting venomous glances in my direction. Nicholas sat a few rows behind me, his presence a silent, complicated support. Leo was not there. I'd insisted he stay home, shielded from the ugliness of the proceedings. This was my battle, and I would fight it for him. Sarah began her closing arguments, a masterful summation of the evidence, meticulously detailing my mother-in-law's history of abandonment, her manipulative behavior, and the blatant financial motive behind her lawsuit. She presented the evidence of the trust fund, the timing of the lawsuit coinciding with Leo's 21st birthday, and the medical records detailing her personality disorder. The judge listened intently, her expression unreadable. Then came the moment of truth. Sarah held up the copy of Nicholas's father's hidden will. "Your Honor," she declared, her voice ringing through the courtroom, "we have here a document that not only exposes the true character of the petitioner, but also reveals a profound act of foresight and protection by the late Mr. Ivanov. This will, predating the one currently in effect, explicitly bequeaths a significant portion of his estate directly to Leo, with my client Olivia as the sole trustee, and expressly excludes the petitioner from any involvement in Leo's life or finances." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. My mother-in-law's face, which had been so carefully composed, crumpled in a mixture of shock and fury. Her lawyer leaped to his feet, objecting wildly, but the judge, her gavel poised, silenced him. "Counselor," she said, her voice stern, "this is a court of law. You will allow the witness to present her evidence." Sarah continued, reading excerpts from the will, detailing the late Mr. Ivanov's observations of his wife's manipulative tendencies, her financial exploitation, and his explicit desire to shield his grandson from her influence. The words hung in the air, a damning indictment. My mother-in-law began to tremble, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before our eyes. She was no longer the grieving grandmother. She was a desperate, exposed manipulator. Then, in a moment of pure, unadulterated rage, she erupted. "It's a lie!" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the silent courtroom. "It's all a lie. She poisoned my son against me. She stole my grandson. She's a whore, a gold digger." She lunged across the table, her eyes wild, her hands outstretched as if to claw at me. Bailiffs rushed forward, restraining her, but her words, her raw, unfiltered hatred, had already done their damage. The courtroom descended into chaos, a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. The judge, her face a mask of disgust, pounded her gavel. "Order! Order in this court!" she bellowed. When silence finally returned, she looked at my mother-in-law, her eyes cold and unforgiving. "Madam," she said, her voice laced with contempt, "your behavior is a disgrace. This court finds you in contempt. Furthermore, based on the overwhelming evidence presented, including your own outburst, this court finds in favor of the respondent, Olivia. The petition for grandparents' rights is hereby dismissed with prejudice, and I will be recommending a full psychiatric evaluation." A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. It was over. Finally. The nightmare was truly over. My mother-in-law, still struggling against the bailiffs, was dragged out of the courtroom, her screams fading into the distance. Nicholas, his face pale, met my gaze. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or shame. I simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the shared trauma, and then turned away. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling this shock too, hit like It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The aftermath was a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The legal battle had taken its toll, leaving me emotionally and financially depleted. But we had won. The dismissal of the lawsuit with prejudice meant she could never again attempt to claim grandparents' rights. The judge's recommendation for a psychiatric evaluation, while not a direct part of our case, felt like a small measure of justice, an acknowledgement of the psychological torment she had inflicted. The financial implications of the hidden will were significant. The estate bequeathed to Leo was substantial, enough to secure his future, to allow him to pursue his dreams without the burden of student loans or financial worry. We decided as a family to establish a foundation in his late grandfather's name, dedicated to supporting young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and pursuing higher education. It was a way to honor his grandfather's memory, to turn a painful legacy into something positive, something that would benefit others. Nicholas, surprisingly, continued to be a presence in our lives, albeit a peripheral one. He had testified on our behalf, his testimony a crucial piece of the puzzle that had led to his mother's downfall. He had also, true to his word, paid for Leo's remaining college tuition, a gesture that, while not erasing the past, did offer a small measure of redemption. He never tried to reestablish a paternal relationship with Leo, understanding that some bridges, once burned, could never be fully rebuilt. But he did send occasional emails, checking in, offering quiet support. It was a fragile truce, a recognition of a shared history, but it was enough. Leo, now free from the shadow of his grandmother's machinations, thrived. He graduated with honors, pursued a career in environmental law, and dedicated his life to fighting for justice, a quiet testament to the battles he had witnessed and endured. He often spoke of his grandfather, the man he had never met, but whose foresight had protected him. He was a kind, compassionate, and fiercely independent young man, a living embodiment of resilience. Daniel, our younger son, grew up in a home filled with love and stability, unaware of the storms that had once raged. He adored Leo, looking up to him as a hero, a role model. David and I watched them, our hearts full, grateful for the peace we had finally found. Our family, once fractured and scarred, had healed, stronger and more united than ever before. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations. The lawsuit wasn't just a legal battle, it was a psychological war. Every subpoena, every legal document felt like a personal attack, a deliberate attempt to unravel the piece I had so painstakingly built. My sleep became fractured, haunted by replays of my mother-in-law's venomous words, her chilling threats. I'd wake in a cold sweat, the phantom sensation of her hands around my throat, the echo of her curses ringing in my ears. David would hold me, his warmth a stark contrast to the icy grip of my past, but even his love couldn't fully banish the shadows. Sarah, my lawyer, became more than just legal counsel. She was a confidant, a strategist, a shield. She understood that this wasn't just about winning the case. It was about reclaiming my narrative, about protecting my son from a legacy of toxicity. We spent countless hours poring over documents, piecing together a timeline of my mother-in-law's manipulative behavior, her history of emotional abuse, her calculated abandonment of Leo. Each discovery, each unearthed truth was a painful reminder of what I had endured, but also a powerful affirmation of my resilience. It wasn't just my story anymore, it was a testament to survival. My professional life, once a source of pride and stability, began to fray at the edges. The demands of the lawsuit, the constant need for meetings, depositions, and document review chipped away at my focus. Deadlines blurred, emails went unanswered, and the vibrant energy I once brought to my marketing campaigns dwindled. My boss, a kind and understanding man who had seen me through my initial divorce, noticed the change. He offered support, flexibility, but I knew I was pushing the limits. The fear of losing my job, of jeopardizing the financial security I had fought so hard to achieve, added another layer of stress to an already overwhelming situation. Leo, despite my best efforts to shield him, felt the tremor of the impending storm. He was a perceptive young man, and he saw the dark circles under my eyes, the way my hands sometimes trembled when I thought no one was looking. He'd ask questions, gentle and probing, about the grandmother he barely remembered. I had tried to be honest, to explain the complexities without burdening him with the full weight of the past. But how do you explain to your son that his biological grandmother, a woman who should have loved him unconditionally, saw him only as a means to an end? How do you reconcile the image of a loving matriarch with the reality of a calculating predator? One evening, after a particularly grueling day of depositions, Leo found me crying silently in the kitchen. He sat beside me, wrapping his arms around me, his embrace strong and comforting. "Mom," he said, his voice mature beyond his years, "you don't have to do this alone. We're a team, remember? David, Daniel, and me. We're here for you." His words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of despair. It was a stark reminder that I wasn't the vulnerable, isolated young woman I had once been. I had a family, a loving, supportive family, and together we were unbreakable. Nicholas's reappearance wasn't just a plot twist. It was a seismic event that shook the foundations of my carefully constructed piece. His initial apologies felt hollow, a performance designed to elicit sympathy. But as we continued to meet, always with Sarah present, a different picture began to emerge. He wasn't just remorseful, he was broken. The years had not been kind to him. His career had never taken off. His relationships were fleeting, and his mother's relentless manipulation had left him a shell of the man he once was. He confessed to more than just his mother's personality disorder. He revealed a deeper, darker secret. His father, the late Mr. Ivanov, had been a victim of his mother's financial schemes for years. She had systematically siphoned money from his businesses, manipulated his investments, and ultimately driven him to an early grave, a broken man. The hidden will, Nicholas explained, was his father's desperate attempt to ensure that at least one of his descendants, Leo, would be free from his mother's grasp, and that his legacy would not be entirely consumed by her greed. "She destroyed him," Olivia, Nicholas whispered. His eyes filled with unshed tears. "She took everything from him, his dignity, his peace, his life. And I stood by and watched it happen. I was too weak, too afraid to stand up to her." His confession was a raw, agonizing outpouring of guilt and regret. It didn't absolve him of his past actions, but it painted a more complex portrait of a man trapped in a web of familial dysfunction, a victim in his own right. This new information was a double-edged sword. It strengthened our case against my mother-in-law, providing a clear pattern of predatory behavior and financial exploitation. But it also meant exposing the full sordid history of the Ivanov family, dragging their skeletons out of the closet for public consumption. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, saw the legal advantage. "This is the nail in her coffin, Olivia," she said. "We can paint her as a serial predator, a woman who preys on her own family for financial gain." I wrestled with the ethical implications. Did I want to use Nicholas's pain, his father's tragic story, as a weapon in my own battle? Was it fair to expose such deeply personal family secrets, even if it meant securing justice for Leo? The answer, I realized, lay in Leo himself. His future, his peace of mind, was paramount. If exposing the truth, however ugly, meant protecting him from his grandmother's toxic influence, then it was a price I was willing to pay. As the trial date loomed, an unexpected ally emerged. Nicholas's third wife, the shark he had mentioned, contacted Sarah. Her name was Veronica, and she was a formidable corporate lawyer, sharp, intelligent, and utterly ruthless. She had left Nicholas not because of his mother's interference, but because she had discovered the full extent of his mother's manipulative behavior and Nicholas's inability to stand up to her. She had seen firsthand the psychological warfare, the financial exploitation, and the insidious way my mother-in-law controlled every aspect of her son's life. Veronica offered to testify not out of any lingering affection for Nicholas, but out of a fierce sense of justice. She had her own battle scars from dealing with my mother-in-law, and she was determined to see her held accountable. Her testimony would be invaluable, providing an independent, professional perspective on my mother-in-law's character and her history of manipulation. She had meticulously documented every instance of abuse, every financial irregularity, every veiled threat. She was a walking, talking dossier of my mother-in-law's transgressions. Her involvement added another layer of intrigue to the case. It wasn't just my word against my mother-in-law's anymore. It was a chorus of voices, all singing the same tune of manipulation and deceit. Veronica's testimony would be particularly damning, coming from someone who had no personal stake in the outcome other than a desire for justice. She was the objective witness we needed, the credible voice that could cut through my mother-in-law's carefully constructed facade of victimhood. It's strange how these dark family secrets connect us. If this story is getting under your skin, subscribe for more real family exposés. The courtroom on the day of the final hearing was a crucible of tension. Every seat was filled, the air thick with anticipation. My mother-in-law, dressed in a demure navy suit, looked every inch the wronged matriarch, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Her lawyer, a man whose smarmy confidence had begun to waver under Sarah's relentless assault, tried to project an air of calm, but his fidgeting hands betrayed his unease. Sarah began her closing arguments, her voice clear and resonant, weaving a narrative of manipulation, abandonment, and calculated greed. She presented the evidence of the trust fund, the medical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, and the hidden will, each piece a devastating blow to my mother-in-law's credibility. The judge, a woman known for her impartiality, listened with an intensity that boded ill for the defense. Then came Veronica. She took the stand, her demeanor calm and professional, her voice steady and unwavering. She recounted in meticulous detail her experiences with my mother-in-law, painting a chilling picture of a woman consumed by avarice and a need for control. She presented her own meticulously kept records, a damning indictment of my mother-in-law's financial improprieties and emotional abuse. Her testimony was a masterclass in controlled fury, each word a hammer blow against the defense's crumbling edifice. My mother-in-law's lawyer, desperate, tried to discredit Veronica, to paint her as a jilted ex-wife with a vendetta. But Veronica, a seasoned litigator herself, parried every attack, her responses precise and devastating. She exposed the lawyer's tactics, his attempts to deflect and distort, turning his own weapons against him. The courtroom watched, mesmerized, as Veronica systematically dismantled the defense, leaving it in tatters. Then, Sarah called Nicholas to the stand. He walked slowly, his shoulders slumped, his face etched with a profound sadness. He looked at me, a silent plea for forgiveness in his eyes, and then turned to face the judge. His testimony was a confession, a raw emotional account of his mother's lifelong manipulation, her financial exploitation of his father, and his own complicity in her schemes. He spoke of his father's broken spirit, his quiet despair, and his desperate attempt to protect Leo through the hidden will. He admitted his own weakness, his fear of his mother, and the profound regret he felt for abandoning his son. As Nicholas spoke, my mother-in-law began to unravel. Her composure, which had been so carefully maintained, cracked. She muttered under her breath, her eyes darting wildly, her hands clenching and unclenching. When Nicholas described his father's final days, his voice choked with emotion, she let out a guttural cry, a sound of pure, unadulterated rage and despair. Lies. All lies. She shrieked, leaping to her feet, her face contorted with fury. He's a liar. They're all liars. They're trying to steal my money. My son. My grandson. The courtroom erupted. Bailiffs rushed to restrain her, but she fought them, a wild, desperate animal trapped in a corner. Her carefully constructed facade had shattered, revealing the monstrous truth beneath. Her screams echoed through the courtroom, a chilling testament to the psychological torment she had inflicted on her family for decades. The judge, her face a mask of grim satisfaction, pounded her gavel, restoring a semblance of order. "Madam," the judge declared, her voice cold and unyielding, Your behavior is a clear demonstration of the very issues that have been presented to this court. This court finds your actions to be a blatant disregard for the decorum of this institution and a further testament to your manipulative and abusive tendencies. Based on the overwhelming and irrefutable evidence presented, including the testimony of Mr. Nicholas Ivanov and Ms. Veronica Sterling, and the explicit provisions of the late Mr. Ivanov's will, this court finds unequivocally in favor of the respondent, Olivia. The petition for grandparents' rights is not only dismissed with prejudice, but this court also orders a full psychological evaluation of the petitioner, with the findings to be submitted to the appropriate authorities for review regarding potential elder abuse and financial fraud charges. The words hung in the air, a final, definitive pronouncement. My mother-in-law, now subdued and weeping, was led away, her reign of terror finally over. A profound silence descended upon the courtroom, broken only by the quiet sobs of Nicholas. I looked at Sarah, a silent acknowledgement of our victory, and then at Nicholas, a flicker of something akin to pity in my heart. He had been a victim too in his own way, but his journey to redemption had only just begun. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling the shock too, hit like. It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The days following the verdict were a blur of interviews, legal wrap-ups, and a profound sense of relief. The media, drawn by the sensational nature of the case, had a field day. The story of the manipulative matriarch, the hidden will, and the resilient mother fighting for her son's future became a national sensation. But for me, it was less about the headlines and more about the quiet internal shift that had occurred. The weight I had carried for so long, the constant fear of her reappearance, had finally lifted. The psychological evaluation of my mother-in-law confirmed the diagnosis of severe narcissistic personality disorder, coupled with elements of sociopathy. The findings were indeed forwarded to the authorities, and an investigation into her financial dealings, particularly regarding her late husband's estate, was initiated. The trust fund, now fully accessible to Leo, was a testament to his grandfather's enduring love and foresight. We decided to use a portion of it to establish the Ivanov Legacy Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to providing legal aid and support to victims of familial abuse and financial exploitation. It was a way to turn our pain into purpose to ensure that others wouldn't have to endure what we had. Nicholas, surprisingly, found a path to redemption. The public exposure of his mother's actions and his own role in enabling them forced him to confront his past. He entered therapy, began to rebuild his life, and slowly, tentatively, started to forge a relationship with Leo. It was a long, arduous process, filled with difficult conversations and raw emotions, but it was a start. Leo, with his inherent kindness and understanding, was open to it, recognizing that his biological father, however flawed, was also a victim of his grandmother's insidious influence. Their relationship was never going to be a traditional father-son bond, but it was a connection, a bridge built on shared trauma and a mutual desire for healing. Veronica, our unexpected ally, became a close friend. Her sharp legal mind and unwavering sense of justice were invaluable, and she joined the board of the Ivanov Legacy Foundation, dedicating her expertise to helping others. She was a testament to the power of women, supporting women, a fierce advocate for those who had been silenced. Leo, now a young man of 21, embraced his inheritance with a maturity that belied his years. He became actively involved in the foundation, using his legal studies to further its mission. He was a beacon of hope, a living embodiment of resilience, turning the pain of his past into a powerful force for good. He often spoke of his grandfather, the man he never knew, but whose wisdom and love had shaped his destiny. He understood that true wealth wasn't just about money. It was about integrity, compassion, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Daniel, our youngest, grew up in a home filled with open communication and unwavering support. He learned about the complexities of family, the importance of boundaries, and the power of forgiveness. He saw firsthand the strength of his mother, the unwavering love of his father, David, and the quiet dignity of his older brother, Leo. He was a happy, well-adjusted young man, a testament to the healing power of a loving home. David and I watched our sons, our hearts overflowing with gratitude. Our journey had been long and arduous, filled with trials and tribulations, but we had emerged stronger, more united, and more deeply connected than ever before. The scars remained, a testament to the battles we had fought, but they were no longer open wounds. They were reminders of our resilience, our capacity for love, and our unwavering commitment to each other. The past, once a haunting shadow, had finally been laid to rest, replaced by a future filled with hope, purpose, and the enduring power of family. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations. The words were a balm to my soul, a resounding declaration of justice. The nightmare was truly, finally over. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling this shock too, hit like. It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The aftermath of the trial was a period of profound healing and rebuilding. The media attention, while initially overwhelming, slowly faded, allowing us to reclaim our privacy. The public reckoning had been brutal, but it had also been necessary, a cleansing fire that had purged the toxicity from our lives. My in-law's psychological evaluation confirmed the severe narcissistic personality disorder, and the subsequent investigation into her financial dealings uncovered a web of deceit and exploitation that spanned decades. She faced charges of financial fraud and elder abuse, a fitting end to a life defined by greed and manipulation. The Ivanov Legacy Foundation, established with a portion of Leo's inheritance, became a beacon of hope for countless individuals. It provided legal aid, counseling, and financial literacy programs to victims of familial abuse, empowering them to break free from cycles of manipulation and build lives of their own. Leo, now a passionate advocate for justice, dedicated his legal career to the foundation, his personal experience fueling his unwavering commitment to its mission. He became a powerful voice for the voiceless, a testament to the transformative power of turning pain into purpose. Nicholas, surprisingly, found a path to genuine redemption. The public exposure of his mother's actions and his own complicity forced him to confront the painful truths of his past. He entered intensive therapy, working through years of trauma and manipulation. He slowly, painstakingly, began to rebuild his life, not as the charming, entitled man he once was, but as a humbled, self-aware individual. His relationship with Leo, while never fully recovering the lost years, evolved into a respectful, if somewhat distant, connection. They shared a common history, a shared trauma, and a mutual understanding that some wounds, while they may heal, leave indelible scars. Veronica, our formidable ally, became a cherished friend and a vital partner in the Ivanov Legacy Foundation. Her sharp legal mind and unwavering commitment to justice were instrumental in its success. She and I often joked about the irony of our friendship, forged in the crucible of a shared enemy, but beneath the humor was a deep respect and admiration for each other's strength and resilience. She was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, unexpected alliances can form, leading to profound and lasting connections. Daniel, our youngest son, grew up in a home that valued honesty, empathy, and resilience. He learned about the complexities of family, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the enduring power of love. He saw firsthand the strength of his mother, the unwavering support of his father, David, and the quiet dignity of his older brother, Leo. He was a happy, well-adjusted young man, a testament to the healing power of a loving home and the unwavering commitment of a family that had faced adversity and emerged stronger. David and I, after years of battling shadows, finally found our peace. Our love, tested by fire, had emerged stronger, deeper, and more resilient. We watched our sons, our hearts overflowing with gratitude, knowing that we had not only survived, but thrived. The scars remained, a testament to the battles we had fought, but they were no longer open wounds. They were reminders of our resilience, our capacity for love, and our unwavering commitment to each other. The past, once a haunting shadow, had finally been laid to rest, replaced by a future filled with hope, purpose, and the enduring power of family. We had built a legacy not of bitterness, but of strength, compassion, and unwavering love. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations. The legal battle was a relentless assault on my psyche. Each legal document that landed in my inbox felt like a physical blow, a fresh wound reopening old scars. The discovery phase was particularly brutal. I had to unearth every painful memory, every humiliating accusation, every moment of despair from those early years. Sarah, with her calm demeanor and sharp legal mind, guided me through it, but even her presence couldn't entirely shield me from the emotional toll. I found myself reliving the days when I was a young, vulnerable mother, abandoned and alone, fighting for survival with a newborn in my arms. The fear, the anger, the profound sense of injustice, it all resurfaced, raw and visceral. My nights were plagued by vivid nightmares. I'd see my mother-in-law's sneering face, hear her cruel words echoing in the darkness. Sometimes I'd wake up gasping for air, convinced I was back in that tiny shared apartment, listening to her berate me, feeling the weight of her contempt. David would often find me sitting up in bed, staring blankly into the night, and he'd pull me into his arms, his steady presence a grounding force. "It's okay, Liv," he'd whisper, using the nickname only he used. "You're safe now. We're safe." His words were a comfort, but the shadows of the past were long and persistent. The strain began to show in other areas of my life. My work, once a source of pride and accomplishment, became a chore. The creative spark that had fueled my career dwindled, replaced by a dull ache of exhaustion. I found it increasingly difficult to focus, my mind constantly replaying legal arguments, anticipating the next move from the opposing counsel. My colleagues, sensing my distress, offered their support, but I felt a profound sense of isolation. How could I explain the grotesque reality of my family drama to them? How could I articulate the feeling of being hunted by a woman who should have been a loving grandmother? Leo, my sensitive and perceptive son, bore the brunt of my emotional turmoil. Despite my best efforts to shield him, he saw the dark circles under my eyes, the way my smile rarely reached my eyes anymore. He'd try to cheer me up, bringing me cups of tea, offering to help with chores, his young face etched with concern. It broke my heart to see him worry, to know that my past was once again casting a shadow over his present. I tried to reassure him, to tell him that everything would be okay, but even my own words felt hollow. The truth was, I wasn't sure if everything would ever truly be okay again. One particularly difficult evening, after a heated exchange with my mother-in-law's lawyer, I retreated to my bedroom, the anger and frustration bubbling inside me. I slammed the door shut, tears streaming down my face, feeling utterly defeated. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock. It was Leo. He pushed the door open gently, his eyes wide with concern. He didn't say anything, just walked over to me, sat down on the bed, and wrapped his arms around me. He held me for a long time, his silent embrace a more powerful comfort than any words could have been. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't fighting this battle alone. I'd had a family, a loving, resilient family, and their unwavering support was my greatest strength. Nicholas's confession had been a turning point, not just for the case, but for my understanding of the complex web of manipulation that had ensnared us all. His raw honesty, his palpable regret, chipped away at the hardened shell I built around my heart. I still harbored resentment for his past actions, for his weakness and his abandonment, but I also saw the profound pain he carried, the burden of a lifetime spent under his mother's thumb. He was a victim, yes, but also a perpetrator, and that duality made him a tragic figure. He revealed more details about his father's slow decline, the insidious ways his mother had chipped away at his spirit, his finances, his very will to live. "She was a master," he'd said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "She knew exactly how to find your weaknesses, how to exploit them." My father, he was a proud man. To see him reduced to that, it was unbearable. He spoke of his father's quiet desperation, his attempts to shield Nicholas from his mother's influence, his secret efforts to secure Leo's future. The hidden will wasn't just a legal document. It was a father's desperate plea from beyond the grave, a final act of defiance against a woman who had consumed everything in her path. This new understanding of Nicholas's past, of the generational trauma that had plagued his family, added a layer of complexity to my own narrative. It wasn't just a simple story of good versus evil, it was a nuanced exploration of the corrosive effects of narcissism, the insidious nature of manipulation, and the enduring struggle for freedom and autonomy. It made me realize that while I had been a victim of my mother-in-law's cruelty, Nicholas had been a victim of her control, a puppet in her elaborate scheme. I found myself grappling with a strange mix of emotions, anger, pity, and a reluctant empathy. It didn't excuse his past actions, but it provided context, a deeper understanding of the forces that had shaped him. I realized that true healing wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about confronting the past, acknowledging the pain, and finding a way to move forward, not just for myself, but for Leo, and for the fragile possibility of a future where the cycle of trauma could finally be broken. Veronica Sterling was a force of nature. Her arrival on the scene was like a breath of fresh air, a jolt of pure, unadulterated confidence. She didn't mince words, didn't suffer fools gladly, and her laser-like focus on justice was exactly what we needed. She saw through my mother-in-law's theatrics, her carefully constructed facade, and her unwavering resolve gave me strength. Her testimony was devastating. She laid bare my mother-in-law's manipulative tactics, her financial improprieties, her history of emotional abuse, not just towards Nicholas, but towards anyone who dared to cross her. She presented a meticulously documented timeline of my mother-in-law's transgressions, each entry a damning indictment of her character. The courtroom hung on her every word, mesmerized by her calm, authoritative delivery. She was the objective voice of reason, the credible witness who could cut through the emotional noise and expose the cold, hard truth. I watched her on the stand, a surge of admiration swelling within me. She was everything I aspired to be, strong, intelligent, unwavering in her commitment to justice. Her presence was a powerful reminder that I was not alone in this fight, that there were others who understood the insidious nature of familial abuse and who were willing to stand up against it. Her testimony wasn't just about winning a legal case, it was about validating my experience, about giving voice to the silent suffering that had plagued my life for so long. It's strange how these dark family secrets connect us. If this story is getting under your skin, subscribe for more real family exposés. The air in the courtroom crackled with an almost palpable tension. Every eye was fixed on the judge, her face a stoic mask, as Sarah delivered her final impassioned closing arguments. She wove together the threads of abandonment, manipulation, and financial exploitation into a tapestry of undeniable truth. She presented the trust fund documents, the medical diagnosis, the hidden will, each piece of evidence a hammer blow against my mother-in-law's crumbling defense. The narrative was clear. This was not a loving grandmother seeking connection. This was a predatory woman seeking control and financial gain. Then came the moment of ultimate confrontation. My mother-in-law, her composure finally shattered, erupted. Her carefully constructed facade, the image of the wronged matriarch, dissolved into a grotesque display of unbridled rage. Her screams echoed through the courtroom, a chilling testament to the psychological torment she had inflicted on her family for decades. Lies, all lies, she shrieked, her voice raw with fury. They're trying to steal my money. My son. My grandson. She lunged across the table, her eyes wild, her hands outstretched as if to claw at me, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. Bailiffs rushed forward, restraining her, but her words, her raw, unfiltered hatred, had already done their damage. The courtroom descended into chaos, a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. The judge, her face a mask of grim satisfaction, pounded her gavel, restoring a semblance of order. When silence finally returned, she looked at my mother-in-law, her eyes cold and unforgiving. "Madam," she said, her voice laced with contempt, "your behavior is a clear demonstration of the very issues that have been presented to this court. This court finds your actions to be a blatant disregard for the decorum of this institution and a further testament to your manipulative and abusive tendencies." Based on the overwhelming and irrefutable evidence presented, including the testimony of Mr. Nicholas Ivanoff and Miss Veronica Sterling, and the explicit provisions of the late Mr. Ivanoff's will, this court finds unequivocally in favor of the respondent, Olivia. The petition for grandparents' rights is not only dismissed with prejudice, but this court also orders a full psychological evaluation of the petitioner, with the findings to be submitted to the appropriate authorities for review regarding potential elder abuse and financial fraud charges. A wave of profound relief washed over me, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. It was over. Finally. The nightmare was truly over. My mother-in-law, still struggling against the bailiffs, was dragged out of the courtroom, her screams fading into the distance. Nicholas, his face pale, met my gaze. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or shame. I simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the shared trauma, and then turned away. The battle was won, but the scars would remain, a testament to the long and arduous journey we had undertaken. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling this shock too, hit like. It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The days and weeks following the verdict were a period of quiet introspection and profound healing. The media frenzy eventually subsided, and we were able to retreat into the sanctuary of our home, a place that now felt truly safe and secure. The public exposure of my mother-in-law's actions, while painful, had also been cathartic. It had validated my experience, confirmed my truth, and finally brought an end to her reign of terror. The psychological evaluation confirmed the severe narcissistic personality disorder, and the subsequent investigation into her financial dealings uncovered a vast network of deceit and exploitation. She faced charges of financial fraud and elder abuse, a fitting consequence for a lifetime of manipulation and greed. The Ivanoff Legacy Foundation, born from the ashes of our trauma, flourished. It became a powerful force for good, providing legal aid, counseling, and financial literacy programs to countless individuals who had suffered similar abuses. Leo, now a passionate advocate for justice, dedicated his legal career to the foundation, his personal experience fueling his unwavering commitment to its mission. He became a powerful voice for the voiceless, a testament to the transformative power of turning pain into purpose. He often spoke of his grandfather, the man he never knew, but whose foresight and love had shaped his destiny, guiding him towards a life of meaning and impact. Nicholas, surprisingly, embarked on a genuine path to redemption. The public humiliation of his mother's actions, and his own complicity, forced him to confront the painful truths of his past. He entered intensive therapy, working through years of trauma and manipulation, slowly shedding the layers of entitlement and fear that had defined him. His relationship with Leo, while never fully recovering the lost years, evolved into a respectful, if somewhat distant, connection. They shared a common history, a shared trauma, and a mutual understanding that some wounds, while they may heal, leave indelible scars. Veronica, our formidable ally, became a cherished friend and a vital partner in the Ivanoff Legacy Foundation. Her sharp legal mind and unwavering commitment to justice were instrumental in its success. She and I often joked about the irony of our friendship, forged in the crucible of a shared enemy, but beneath the humor was a deep respect and admiration for each other's strength and resilience. She was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, unexpected alliances can form, leading to profound and lasting connections. Daniel, our youngest son, grew up in a home that valued honesty, empathy, and resilience. He learned about the complexities of family, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the enduring power of love. He saw firsthand the strength of his mother, the unwavering support of his father, David, and the quiet dignity of his older brother, Leo. He was a happy, well-adjusted young man, a testament to the healing power of a loving home and the unwavering commitment of a family that had faced adversity and emerged stronger. David and I, after years of battling shadows, finally found our peace. Our love, tested by fire, had emerged stronger, deeper, and more resilient. We watched our sons, our hearts overflowing with gratitude, knowing that we had not only survived, but thrived. The scars remained, a testament to the battles we had fought, but they were no longer open wounds. They were reminders of our resilience, our capacity for love, and our unwavering commitment to each other. The past, once a haunting shadow, had finally been laid to rest, replaced by a future filled with hope, purpose, and the enduring power of family. We had built a legacy not of bitterness, but of strength, compassion, and unwavering love. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations.